We're going to be performing hip dominant split squat and explaining proper form. To initiate the movement, you want to make sure your feet are hip width apart, and after that, we're going to shift the weight on one leg and get into the hinging position. So I want you to hinge, keep this leg slightly bent, bring this leg back and bend it. I want you to stay here for about 15 seconds, and I want you to focus on feeling tension right here and in your hamstrings. Once you found that position and you feel that tension, we're going to take the back foot and we're going to bring it back and to the side and plant it where you feel comfortable. That is your initial position to go into hip dominant split squat. From here, you're going to load your hip and go back down on the angle. Notice her knee is not touching my hand. We're trying to avoid it and not push the knee forward. We want to push the hip more back to load the hip more. From here, she's going to drive the foot down, squeeze her glutes, and come up. At the top, she squeezes her glutes fully and extends the hip, but never fully locks out the knee. The knee always stays right over the ankle joint. When you get down, I want you to load your hip a little bit more by creating more anterior pelvic tilt and creating a little bit more hip flexion, leaning forward. The more you lean forward, the more you will create the stretch on your glutes and your hamstrings, and then you stand up. At the top, make sure you squeeze the glutes and extend the hip fully. The important part as you're going down is to make sure that your hips stay fully squared up. So notice your left hip and right hip are completely equal, and then you come up, and as you're coming up, you want to squeeze the glutes, but keep those hips squared up at all times. As you get to the bottom position, you want to make sure that your knee is not going forward. So you actually want to shift the weight more back and stick out your hip more. If you push the knee forward, right here, this is going to be more quad dominant. If you bring your knee right over your ankle and then come up, that becomes more hip dominant. So as she goes down, she doesn't want to touch my hand. She want to push her hip back, and then from here, come up, and that's where you're going to feel the hip. The more the knee goes past your toes, the more you're going to feel it in your quad, and we want to avoid that. Pay attention to these three things. First thing, you want to make sure that 80% of your weight stays on the front leg. Second thing is you want to hinge and load your hip as you're going down. Create anterior pelvic tilt to create a greater stretch on your glutes and hamstrings. And the third thing, do not allow your knee to go forward. Keep your knee right over your ankle joint to help you load the hip more. I hope that helps. Stay fit.